Well, it's 7 o'clock. If you'll join us, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, let's see who's here.
Councilmember Davis. Here. Councilmember Cortez.
Here.
Deputy Mayor DeRozan. Here. Mayor Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Bowman.
Yes.
Councilmember McCoy.
Here.
Councilmember Walters. Here. Roll has been called, Mayor Johnson.
Thank you. I will tell everyone, I stayed in bed a little later this morning, so I'd be ready fresh at 11 o'clock this evening. So that's, I just
not
wanted everyone to know that.
Not funny.
Well, I just let everybody
He
know
means
that.
he slept in until 3:30.
It was about 3:45. Agenda approval. Are there any additions or removals from the agenda? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to RCW 42.30.1110 for the city council to enter into an executive session to discuss property negotiations for approximately 20 minutes at the end of the meeting with no action to follow.
Okay, well, we'll set a time at these.
Second.
Is there, yes, thank you. There is a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none and hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. We'll put that, of course, at the end. Council member reports. Are there any? Kind of slow summer. Okay. Me as well. So it's to you, Ms. Urban. We're moving right along now. Don't slow us down. Don't.
It's hot or cold.
Well, good evening, council. I'm pleased to announce that we've hired a new assistant planner. This is Dominic Maiello. And I'm going to turn it over to Dominic. He's got a speech ready for you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nothing too crazy.
Well, let's don't go crazy, but okay.
No. Good evening, everyone. As you know from my announcement, my name is Dominic Maiello, and I'm the new assistant planner for the city of Battleground, Washington. I'm very excited to be a part of this growing community, and I look forward to serving the city. Just some backstory of who Dominic is. I'm an East Coaster, born and raised in upstate New York, near the city of Saratoga Springs, New York, known for the turning point in the War for Independence and the longstanding history of thoroughbred racing. After graduating high school, I ventured out into the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts, where I attended Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. Playing varsity soccer for all 4 years at MCLA when receiving my degree in history and political science. After that brief chapter in my life, I decided to move back to New York to get my master's, attending SUNY Albany, where I got my master's in regional planning. Gaining a wheelhouse of knowledge with a focus in community planning. During my time at SUNY Albany, I was the vice president of communications of the Graduate Planning and Student Association, and I worked for Cornell University as a researcher and other internship opportunities with private and public sectors in planning. Planning has stemmed from my passion in helping people, and I hope that in my time here, I can serve people of Battleground to the best of my abilities through planning and development. Excluding my professional and educational merits, I'm an active skier, born on the ice coast. I have ventured out west to experience some of the great mountains, and I look forward to exploring the Pacific Northwest and what it has to offer. In addition, I've been assimilating into this great Pacific Northwest culture. I've already developed an addiction for coffee, and I've been pretty active in hiking the Columbian Gorge and some local trails around Battleground, Washington. I look forward to see what this whole steelhead fishing is all about. Looking forward to that. But anyways, I found that settling here has been easier than expected, and I'm happy to be a part of such a welcoming staff that has made this transition very smooth. Enough said. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with the city council, and I look forward to working and living here.
And how long have you been with us in the city?
About 2 weeks.
No, in the living in the community, about 2 weeks.
So I haven't had much time. but
So you packed up the car and headed west,
packed two
Horace
bags,
Greeley style.
packed two suitcases on an airplane, and that's all I did.
Oh, didn't even bring a car.
No, I found a car when I was here.
Wow.
Actually, easier than I thought, actually. But yeah, just two suitcases and I guess a dream.
Well, we hope the dream stays with you for quite some time, and we
Thank you.
look forward to many years.
And I look forward to working here for many years.
Pleasure to have you.
Thank
Watch
you.
out, Sam.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, take care. Okay, citizens communications. Don't see anyone that's interested in that. We'll move on. The consent agenda. Does any council, let me take my glasses off so I can read it. Does any council member believe that any item needs to be withdrawn? Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Let's move to the public hearing. The '80s rock band got the reverb on.
Sam's my son. Sam's my.
That'd be me. Sorry.
Okay. Back in the '90s, we had that odd haircut, Sam, and living that rock and roll dream. That flock of seagulls haircut you had.
I think we got it. So I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Kermit to open up the public hearing for the Parks Recreation Open Space Plan.
Okay, sorry about that introduction. So hopefully it goes better from here. Before you is the Parks Recreation and Open Space Plan. The consultant gave you a presentation at our last meeting. So I won't be going through any of the presentation details. Really, this is the opportunity for any interested citizens to speak on the plan. I guess I will quickly summarize the Planning Commission recommendation. At their July 20th meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan without any changes. They also deliberated for a while on the park impact fee rate. They selected the rate of $4,270 for a single family dwelling and $3,546 for a multifamily dwelling. Instead of having that rate start immediately, they kind of would like to phase it in. So they chose to impose the rate increase incrementally at kind of 1/3 increments over a period of 3 years until it reaches the full rate. I think the idea behind that was they didn't want to, I think they were cognizant of the affordability of homes, and also kind of a big increase in that rate was some of their underlying reasons. Otherwise, I'll stop there, see if you have any questions, and then ask to open up a public hearing and recommend any changes, and then we'll come back at a later time, likely early fall, for an ordinance and adoption.
I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing now, and we'll come back to the questions. Does anyone have anything in the audience to say about the parks plan? Seeing none, we'll open and close the public hearing. And we'll then move to Mr. Cortez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Sam, what is the percentage increase from where current PIFs are to what the planning commission has made the recommendation? Do you have that figure for both residential and multifamily?
Yeah, I do. Give me 1 second here. The current park impact fee rate for a single family home is $2,840. So the, I don't have that percentage, but it's,
It's a third.
30%.
It's
so yeah,
roughly a third.
going from 2840 to 4270. And then for multifamily, the rate is 2,680. And then it would jump up to 3,546.
That's about 26%.
Thank you. Okay, so it looks like the recommendation is to increase residential by roughly 30% and multifamily by roughly 26%. I think in terms of my particular opinion on it, if we make any adjustments to PIF, I do think adjustments are required, and I do appreciate the work that the planning commission put on it. I'd be kind of leery on doing a multi-prong approach, because then it seems like every single year you're making these increases. And so I'd rather us do it right there, make the one-time increase, and then move on, right? I do appreciate all the work that staff and you have put into the parks plan. And I look forward to being able to adopt it. My last question is, and perhaps this was said when they gave the presentation. I assume it was a very complex formula on how they got to that increase of 30% for residential and multifamily. Is that? Okay,
The formula itself is actually adopted in our code, so it's taking into account all the capital improvements that are needed and then spread out. So
Okay,
based on that formula, it's already adopted.
perfect. So that answers my question. It is not some arbitrary
Just pick a number.
number that the planning commission came up with as a recommendation. It's in our code. Okay, great. That's great. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Seeing none, I too agree with Mr. Cortez on let's just rip the Band-Aid off. And 4270 for the single family, 3546. Is there a way that can be indexed as we go further, or 5 years from now, someone else will come along and decide 4270 and we need to add another $500 or $600 to it with the next park plan?
Yeah, we can assess this rate annually.
Year. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we can assess the fee every year.
Okay. Why didn't we?
Well, we didn't have a plan and we didn't have any, improvements identified with costs. So now that we do, we can kind of keep
Okay,
those moving. Yeah.
It just, I was getting ready to let that go by me and then it's like, why didn't we? Ooh, hold the bus. Does anyone have any disagreement with holding it 4270 and 3546 as put forward by Mr. Cortez and myself?
We need a motion.
Don't think we need a motion. We're just going to.
Yeah, so I think the parks plan will come back with the comp plan amendment, so we'll get adopted at that same time because we can only amend the comp plan once a year. And then we'll also update the PIF fees in the fee schedule that will be adopted in October along with the budget process.
So at the reading of the ordinance, 30 days after that, they go into effect.
Yes, well, with the fee schedule, it'll be 2023, January 1, 2023. We can do it. We can do an offhand adjustment if you would prefer to do it that way too.
We might as well, again, pull the Band-Aid off and let's roll. Because there are subdivisions popping up. And I don't want anyone downstairs, especially our newest member, having to explain to someone why he paid 2840 and while I'm paying 4270. We can just play the game. Any other questions of Sam or Ms. Urban? Don't see any. Is that what you needed from us? Yep. Perfect. Let's move on to the Hanson Annexation. Again, Ms. Urban, to you.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. And
Yes,
again, I'm
ma'am.
going to turn it over to Mr. Kremert to talk about Hanson Annexation.
Okay, this evening, we have again the Hanson Annexation. Tonight is the public hearing. The annexation itself is limited to just Mr. Hanson's property. I know in previous discussions, we entertained bringing some neighbors in. So this is an annexation, just to bring in, Mr. Hanson's 5-acre parcel. By state law, we're required to do a public hearing. We posted the property. I see Mr. Hanson's in attendance. I'm not sure if there's any other interested citizens, but I'd ask you to open up the public hearing and entertain any testimony.
Do you recognize everyone on Zoom? We will open up the public hearing for the Hanson annexation. Is there anyone that wishes to speak about it? Seeing Mr. Hanson, come on up, Mr. Hanson. Take a moment.
Howard Hanson, my wife Kathleen. When we were here in April, we went through the first step and it was a 5-2 vote, as I recall, to approve the annexation at that point and come back after staff had a chance to take another look at it, and that's tonight. I'm hoping that the annexation goes through, but I could answer questions. I don't have anything further to say.
Nothing's changed on your part?
No.
Okay, then I think we're squared away.
Yeah, so next steps is I will be coming back with an
Let me
ordinance.
close the public hearing. I'm
Sorry.
going to close the public hearing. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Sure, thank you.
So next steps, we'll come back with an ordinance. At that time, you'll take a vote and it'll become official 30 days after that.
Does anyone have any questions of this? I don't see any. We're moving on. We're moving on to the business portion, and that is again to you, Ms. Erdman.
Thank you again. And I'm going to turn it over to our Finance and Informational Services Director for the second quarter financial.
You want to stop sharing your screen?
I will say, Ms. Lowry, at 7:15, you've got about 3 hours to fill. So try to make this as long and arduous as you can.
I was prepared for the 11 o'clock meeting.
Sleep in ever again.
If the sun doesn't set by the time you're finished, then we will be disappointed.
So
So,
you can all ask me as many questions as you want.
well, let's roll.
Okay, so. So financial highlights for Q2. So far, we have collected $1.6 million in sales tax, which is up $150,000 from the same period of time last year, which is roughly a 10% increase. Not as much of an increase as we saw same quarter last year compared to 2020, but we're still definitely maintaining that increase in sales tax and have not dipped thus far. Development activity, we did see a slight decrease as far as building permits go. We issued 141 single-family residences compared to 168 and 6 multifamily and 3 commercial in 2021. However, I can say July saw a little bit more activity, so the next quarter should likely pick up. Building plan checks is up about $25,000, 6% from 21. And planning reviews is also up 142,000, 55% from 21. Real estate excise tax is massively up by 504,000, a 64% increase over 2021. We shall see if this continues throughout 2022 due to rising mortgage rates, but it seems to be continuing at least in the interim. So we shall see. Police emphasis patrol related to the $90,000 allotted earlier this year to the police department for the additional emphasis. There was only about 2 months worth of emphasis patrols in that period of time for Q2, about $7,700 in overtime. We still have about $82,000 remaining in that $90,000 allotment, which police has plans for. So,
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yep.
And Chief, this is probably for you. What were the emphasis patrols we did there?
We did a variety of patrols, mostly speed, distracted driving, and 1 or 2 crosswalk emphasis and all that. I think one one DUI emphasis that's separate from target zero.
Okay.
So a variety so far.
Will we see a detailed report of what came out of those emphasis patrols? Or can we see one in the future
Yes.
of what?
Yeah.
What each one of those patrols generated, what we did, those type of things?
So I think most of that is on that monthly report that we launched out last month, on the internet, on the web, on our website.
But does
I would
it show the
double check.
emphasis patrol on its own?
It does. I believe it does. If it
Okay.
doesn't, we intend to break that out.
Okay,
So
thank you. Thank you.
The police complex parking lot, the rehabilitation was completed in Q2 for $171,000. That included design. Construction on SR 503, the shared use pathway, has begun, and we have issued the contract for construction of that shared use pathway. We haven't seen any invoices yet for that work. I think there was one small one in Q2, but we should likely see some more during Q3 and then likely Q4, the largest portion. Community Center landscaping project was completed for $70,000. And then we had our 2021 financial statement and accountability audits. So taking a look at the general fund revenue, we're at 56.4% of budget, which we're at $486,000 more than 2021 overall. The intergovernmental is only at 14.9% because that includes a large ARPA funding that we are putting towards the project. So that should come later on in the year as that work ramps up. Then this kind of gives it to you in a different picture as to show the allocation. Taxes is the largest portion of what makes up our general fund revenues at 62.4%. The 22% is that intergovernmental revenues, which again is a little bit off-putting because a large portion of that 2.5 million, I believe, is for the ARPA funded programs for water and sewer. 10.1% is our licenses and permits, and then the smaller ones make up the rest. So looking at our general fund tax revenue, we obviously book property tax in its entirety at the beginning of the year as our levy, and then we collect throughout the year, happening in April and October, the county collects. So we are actually at 56% collection rate for our property tax levy, which is a good place to be considering the second half is due in October. So the larger portion will come in October. Sales tax is 20% of the total tax revenue, which we already talked about. So we're at 1.7 million for 2022, which doesn't, that includes criminal justice. So criminal justice and sales tax as well in that 1.7. And then utility tax is at 1 million. So looking at what we collect in general sales tax revenue of what we budget 4.1 million, what we actually collected for 2022 with the lag period of the 2 months that we collect during 2022 is 1.6 million. And then the cash, what we've actually received January to June is 2.5 million in sales tax. That includes December and November sales tax activity. So we are currently at 39% of the budget for 2022, which we are likely going to exceed the budget amount, be closer to 5 million if things continue as they are for 22.
In sales tax.
Correct, in sales tax, yep. And you can see in this chart, the far right column is 2022 for each of the months, January, February, March, April, May, and June. For the most part, we've been exceeding the previous years by a lot. May, we saw it actually tick a little bit lower than 21, but then June, we're back above it. So then the fun one, looking at our overall sales tax for the city and what the city brings in. Based upon what we received in sales tax, the gross receipts in the city of Battleground were 305 million for the first quarter of 22. 19.8 million went to the state. Mental health and criminal, both at the county, got 304,000, and then the county itself got 457,000. Transit got 2.1 million, and then the city 2.5 million. And then of that criminal justice, we do get back a proportionate share of that, and we got 150,000 so far in 22.
you said this is for the 6 month period from January to
From
June?
January, yep, this is cash basis, so this is including January and February. Or
Again,
excuse
that-
me, December and November activity.
The number that always astounds me is the state's portion. That in a small town like this, you can drag $20 million in sales tax out of 21,000 people. In 6 months. It's a crazy number. That they're not willing to share, that's crazy.
And then looking at what makes up that sales tax as far as what are the industries that are actually bringing in that sales tax? And this is the same. So if you look at the 2021 side and the 2022 side, it's the same period of time. So retail is actually down about 1%. We're at 45.1% of overall sales tax for retail trade. And then construction is our next biggest bringer in of sales tax at 16.9%, which is slightly up from 21. And then food services is actually up 1.4%, which is fantastic. The addition of the new places over in the Scotton area, I think, have helped increase that. And then moving on to expenses, before I do that, are there any questions about revenues? So these are our general fund, 14 different departments that are tracked throughout the general fund. Looking at overall expenditures, we're at 40.4% of the overall budget. Since we're halfway through the year, the target would be to be less than 50%. Obviously, being less is better, because it means more money that sits in your fund balance to be able to expend at a later date. Looking at the intergovernmental, that does include our third quarter CRESA bill. They do bill before the end of the second quarter, so that gets included in the second quarter expenses. So that's why it's a little bit higher. And then looking by department. Again, same information. The only funds that are over, or excuse me, departments that are over the 50% mark is executive at 51.5%, but that includes our annual WCIA property liability insurance, which is a massive bill and it's for the whole year, and we get billed at the beginning of the year. So that's why that's at 51%. And then civil service as well, that 51.4%, but we're advertising, actively recruiting, which is why that's above the 50% mark. Are there any questions about the general fund expenditures? Okay. Moving on to real estate excise tax. Again, like I said earlier, total REIT, we're at 1.295 million to date for 2022 compared to 791,000 for 21, which was a record year in and of itself. So it's a 64% increase over 21. Moving on to our streets fund. Revenues are at 36.6%. There's the same sort of lag on the motor vehicle tax as on the sales tax. So that's only for 4 months activity at 142,000, which is why it's at 30%. It's still a little bit below budget because we would expect it to be at 33% at this point in time. But again, a lot to do with the fuel that's coming in and then the state shared revenue as part of that. Looking at our expenditures, we are at 18.8%. However, it's that low because we do have the large pavement preservation work that will be going on this summer that we haven't been invoiced for yet. So that's why it's low on that side. Are there any questions about streets before I move on? Okay. Looking at our parks fund, so exciting news to share. Our community center rentals compared to 2019 before COVID hit, before we had to shut down. We had 125 events in 2022 compared to 71 in 2019. So we're definitely up from where we were in 2019. Senior center rentals, the same sort of comparison. We had 172 events thus far in 2022 versus 100 in 2019. So our rentals are definitely increasing in both centers. And then looking at our expenditures, we're at 48.6%. The services does include that landscaping project that was done, which was a large expense. And then we also purchased a mower for parks, which that was what the capital equipment budget was for, which is done. We got it cheaper than what we anticipated, which is a positive. Are there any questions about parks? Moving on to storm drainage. So we are at 41.7% of revenues, however. That is skewed because of the state grant from Department of Ecology is a large chunk of the budget, but that's related to the decant facility building. So we'll be getting that as we do the expenditures for that project. For our drainage services, we're right on target with budget at 858,000, so 50% of what we anticipate for the budget. Expenditure side, we're at 24.8%, which again, that is skewed due to the capital outlay related to that decant facility project. So we're on target as far as expenditures go. Are there any questions about stormwater?
Are we holding a lot of money in there, more than ample? Mark,
We
would
are
you,
actually holding in total for storm, 4 million between the SDC fund and this fund.
and storm mostly pays for,
So a big chunk of what comes out of it is the street sweeping, so that's all, rather than being street, it's all the port storm. And then we've got some capital projects that are coming up, so a lot of this will be related to the railroad ditch. One, cleaning it, and then two, stormwater facility over there.
do we own the ditch?
We don't own the ditch, but we have a easement right at the top of it and have our stormwater there.
So we're cleaning out someone else's ditch?
Yeah, as part of the agreement that was made, that's the big act from like the seventh street, said that was put in place. We've also got all the permitting issues with the NPDS permit that gets addressed through that. And then operation staff that take care of the catch basins, piping, all those sorts of things.
So are we able to increase the street sweeping? It's once a quarter or is it once, twice a year?
Yeah, so we're actually, we've only got the one sweeper, so we can only do as much. We are looking at that as part of the, getting the grant from the state for the sweeper. We did some enhanced, but we have a program to do some enhanced street sweeping, so you'll see that increase over time.
Okay, because I mean, through my little cul-de-sac, I think we've seen them once this year. We should have seen them twice or just once every 6 months.
Yeah, it should be every quarter. What you'll see though, is where the enhanced will be is in areas that need it most, so they've gone through and looked at what areas could benefit most from the enhanced sweeping, and those are the ones that get targeted.
Okay, thank you.
Do we, on that, Mark, do we communicate that out at all to like where we're sweeping on what days? I just happened to be outside and heard the truck coming by and start moving cars as quick as I could,
Yeah, we've got it on our website. I'm not sure if Alicia's done to be like, pushing it out to Facebook or anything like that, but the schedule is on the website, your de-icing and those sorts of things.
Because there's a lot of neighborhoods that have a lot of cars in the street, and we're literally just sweeping some dust out of the middle and not getting anything along the curbs and stuff because of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's some people that are really on top of the schedule, like we'll get a phone call like we're a day late from their street, and then others, they, don't seem to know what it is. Okay,
Thank you.
Moving on to water. So water, when we're looking at the revenue at 30.7%, when we take out the transfer from general fund and the SDCs, that we are at 43.6% of what we'd expect for budget. And we would anticipate for water services, the majority of water use happens during this time of year, so that ticks up during the next few months as far as usage and then the billing. So we're right on track for what we would expect for water service revenue. Looking at the expenditures, it says we're at 24.6% when you take out the capital and the water purchased from CPU, we're actually at 36.5% of budget to actual. As far as the purchased water, we are at 21.6% of what we had expected in the budget, but we're definitely less than we were in 21. And on the billing side, we've definitely seen a decrease in water usage in the last couple months. It is likely going to uptick again with the heat wave that we just experienced. I think the cold spell, people weren't using as much, and now that we're getting into summer and the actual heat, we will likely see some larger consumption. So that purchased water may actually end up going up because of that, depending upon capacity and needs and so forth. Are there any questions about water?
Why are we transferring money from the general fund?
That is for ARPA. So
Oh, that's
general
that's,
fund's
okay.
holding the funds because we had to have a place to put it while decisions were being made. And so it's holding. So as the projects are done, it'll be like its own granting agency, and we'll send that money to where those expenditures happen.
Gotcha.
So the sewer fund. You'll see we're at 30.9% of budget to actual. When you take out, again, the SDC transfer and the contributed capital and grant, we're actually at 50% of budget to actual, which is right on target. You can see the sewer services, 49.5%, which is right on track with what we anticipated. The contributed capital is developer credits used, and so those were the credits we had issued to a developer for work done on our capital project plan. And then we issue them credits, and then this is them using it. So that's how much has been used thus far this year. And then looking at expenditures, we're at 28.4%. However, if you take out the capital, we're at 45% budget to actual. So we are also on target for that. Are there any questions about sewer?
Has DC Watt told us what their increase is going to be in the coming year yet? Have they
Yes.
figured that out?
Yes.
And
It was
that number is?
4.3 million. So it's about a 30% increase.
$1 million.
So what, who else raises 30%? We sure haven't.
Right, so they, based upon their debt issuances, because they issued their debt, so we have to pay our proportionate share of that debt, which is why they increased what they did. So it was something we had anticipated based upon their plan that they gave us for their debt issuance. It was higher than what we expected because of the bond market and what it did to them when they went out to issue and couldn't get it, and then had to end up getting a higher rate. But we did expect an increase due to their debt issuance.
And as a percentage on our water bill, what is, are we
sewer bill.
filtering that, into our sewer bill? Are we filtering, another water term, are we filtering that in? What do you see that number be?
Based upon what we have seen, it'll be about a 5% increase to rates, but it shouldn't go above that each year. We're trying to maintain below that amount. And
So-
so it's about $2.50, I want to say,
So how does 5% cover 30%?
because of the other costs that are offset. We also use SDCs to offset a portion of that sewer fee to DC WA, because when we collect SDCs, a portion of that is collected on behalf of the district related to their capital. And so we're able to take a portion of that and offset the increase to the RSCs. If that makes sense.
It does. And let me ask the fellows sitting to my left. Are there any other coming in the new year that you know of?
As far as debt,
As far as, are they going out for another bond or anything in 23?
Not that I'm aware of.
No?
we've got some projects coming up, but they're further out than that. The main one was the outfall. And get that small one in a 24, yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
So Megan, I assume that, in the next 24, 36, 48 months, if the bond market improves, and if they're able to refinance that, then the rest of the partners will take part in that savings, right?
That would be yes, 100%, because our costs are based on their costs. And so if they're able to refi, or say they're able to get a public works trust fund loan, or they get a grant or an apportionment, something like that, then if their costs go down, our costs go down.
Okay.
Anyone else? Well, let's move along the sewer.
So looking at our total cash and investments. There's some upsides to the federal rate going up for us and that our interest earnings goes up. As far as what we're actually getting from LGIP, the county pool. We do have some interest rates locked in our long-term investments at 5 million. LGIP's interest rate went from 1% in June to 1.6%. We just got back for July. The county pool, we're waiting to see how they did in July, but they've always maintained right around that percent. Except for the huge dip that they saw in the last 2 years, which we were lucky to get 0.4% return on our monies. So overall, we're holding 67.5 million in all accounts. And you can see the listing of what each fund is holding. I will say the general fund is holding the $6 million of ARPA funds because we did get that second half. So a portion of that 18 million is that grant funds that we're just holding on to for those projects as they do.
They've already forwarded the whole amount.
Correct. And they just did that at the end of June. Might have been recently. In the last month, so. Are there any questions about cash and investments or anything else related to the second quarter report?
I see that there's $560,000 in vehicles. What there are no vehicles this year if you read the paper. Well, I went to have my car worked on at the Ford dealer. They had 3 new ones. What's our hope? Are we doing anything or are we just out of the vehicle business?
We had ordered the vehicles and as far as what it's saying, they're being built, but whether or not that comes to fruition, we haven't paid for anything at this point related to the public works vehicles. We have gotten the vehicles for PD.
All of them have shown up, excuse me.
Yeah.
And were they what we were promised?
What we expected, yeah.
And then what did we spend to upgrade them? Have we spent anything to,
Yeah, we spent about, average about 4,500 or so, some a little bit more. I think one a little bit more and 2 less or something like that.
so,
About $5,000.
so about 15 grand, 20 grand?
Yes.
We have those vehicles locked in. So have we, I just purchased one a couple weeks ago. And because I changed it from my name to my business name, the MSRP had went up and I had to pay the additional $2,500 jump, right? So have we locked those in at the rates when we ordered them?
Yeah, so the 5 that we bought are off the state contract, and so it's a honored price. And so when we ordered, I think in October or November of last year, that locked it in.
Thank you.
And are we selling anything?
We've been holding off to do the surplus until after the seasonals are gone for the year. So we've been purchasing 5 each year and then we're surplusing 5, but we've been waiting to surplus about November, December.
The 35-year-old Ford.
Yeah, we aren't getting a lot, but we're getting back this year. We have a few trucks that we purchased in 2018. So now we're getting to the point where as of 2023, we should start to be able to get some value back out of the fleet.
Any other questions on cash and investments? Don't see any.
What is the TBD?
I do.
46,000.
That was money that we had previously collected from the vehicle tab fees. It's not anything that we've collected recently. And based upon what council had approved before, that will get transferred to the street fund to help pay for the street preservation. So we increased street preservation by that dollar amount. But we just haven't had that expense happen to do that transfer. So that's what that is. Okay. Well, thank you.
Sun's still up.
Mr. Mayor, can I correct the record for 1 second?
Yes,
Mr. Bowman asked me if that information on the stats for emphasis on the website, it's not. So I have the stats in a smattering of places here. I just wasn't prepared to present it today. So, but we will add that to our July monthly report that'll come out in the next few days or so.
And will that be, like, if you did an emphasis patrol on crosswalk, will that be broken out, like crosswalk emphasis patrol? This is how many people are not obeying the law, this is how many tickets we wrote, that type of stuff, or will it just be all?
No, we could break it out by by the areas that we worked, by the warnings, citations. We have a whole list of different violations that we'll aggregate and display that way. So it'll be pretty detailed.
Thank you.
But it will say it's an emphasis.
We'll break it out, yes. We'll
So
break it out
they know?
separately, so you'll know it's separate from
Okay.
any other report.
Anything else? Don't see any. Moving on. Council, is there anyone have anything? Oh, no,
Administrative reports.
administrative reports, sorry, missed that. Had my glasses on, didn't see it.
No worries. Mr. Kremet has an administrative report. We got a last minute request for an annexation, so I will turn it over to him.
I will share my screen here, 1 second. Okay, we have a property owner requesting to be annexed in the city of Battleground. This is up on Tukes Mountain. We received an application from James Lynn on July 22nd. First thing in the annexation process is that the legislative body needs to set a date to have a meeting with the applicant, at which time the council may accept, reject, or geographically modify the annexation boundary. So I'm at least looking at receiving a date from the council. September 6th or September 19th are a couple options.
Yes, please.
Sam. How? Is this driven by the water?
I have not talked to this person. It very well may be, given the Grace annexation was driven by water. The property directly to the west there was annexed, I want to say 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean,
I remember him.
I look at this and this neighborhood has had water issues. We've talked about this before. They've come in,
8 or
met
9
with
years.
us. Yeah, I mean, it's been ongoing since you and I have been on council, and they seem to just fight amongst themselves, and we're just slowly picking up lot by lot by lot. Have we met with them at all? Have we told them, hey, look, this is what's going on? And
Yeah, Mark and I have met with various neighbors for probably the past decade.
yeah,
We've probably had 5 or 6 meetings where we've given them options. We've told them what it could cost to get water, et cetera. The neighborhood as a group has not been able to make a decision. So if you want to relay anything, you know, to me, as I speak with Mr. Lynn, because the next part of this is, you know, do we accept this boundary as drawn? I could say, hey, well, you know,
They have an HOA in that area,
Yeah.
don't they?
yeah, it's an HOA.
correct.
That's the water. The HOA is the water.
Okay, so why are we not meeting with the HOA to try to pull all those people in?
Well, they've come to us before, but half of them don't want to give up the well that doesn't work.
Yeah,
Half of them want to
right.
annex
I
into the
remember that.
city. And back when we first started this, there was a big issue because this was Fire District 3.
Mhm.
And these are nice homes, big lots, you know, and we were gonna pull them into the city, and that went away. And then there was talk that they were gonna put one commercial meter and go up the hill with it, but they can't get together as a
They don't want to pay
neighborhood.
for it.
That's
Well, yeah,
That's it.
that's basically, yeah, that's
They-
basically
They
it.
want you and me to.
Yeah,
Right.
and but I think they're, you know, we're gonna slowly start to see this piecemeal of just working the sides, you know, and there is, I think people in, I think it's fairly close that they could probably, I know the people that own this, the one in the southeast corner there. And
Does Mr. Grace own the directly adjoining property to this?
Yeah.
Is that the one directly?
to the left, to the west,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does this benefit water? I mean,
Well, they would I guess they would have the choice. If they want to connect to city water, they would need to pay for a meter and any infrastructure needed to hook up to our system.
And through the property to the, I assume that's the north, by your arrow, they would have to try to cut a deal with those people to try to find a line to hook into in some street. I don't know where the next street up is.
Probably to the west here, right here.
So
Yeah.
we actually have a water line that goes on the south side of those. Mr. Grace's property, it feeds a emergency intertie. So when Mr. Grace panics, he just tied a water service into that main line and did it. So I assume they would just extend off of that and tie in if they wanted to.
Okay. Okay, so Mr. Grace is a customer of ours now.
Correct.
Just imagine 8 or 9 years ago when they came to us and told us we were too expensive. I guess they never thought about 8 or 9 years later. Which is kind of a sad comment because I'm sure it's a tad bit more expensive now than it was 8 or 9 years ago. So, well, September 6th, September 19th. How about the 6th? Does the 6th work with everyone? To bring this forward.
September 6th should be fine. I haven't, I've reached out to Mr. Lynn. I haven't heard back yet, but if he can't make the 6th, then we
Then
can
the-
always
The
adjust
19th
that.
just as well.
Right, but we'll shoot for September 6th.
Perfect. Anything else?
That concludes administrative reports.
And council communications? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I don't know if anybody else was gonna share this, but tomorrow's National Night Out over at Kiwanis Park, 6 to 8.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, sir. Nope. I will. I will say that, Mr. McCoy's picture was in the paper yesterday. I had to call and tell him, or had to send him a note to tell him he didn't read that close. But for CML, right? Isn't that what it was? Congratulations. Anything else? Seeing none. Moving on to the next, pursuant to RCW 42.30.110. For the city council to enter into an executive session to discuss property negotiations for approximately 15 minutes. The time currently is 7:52. We'll start at 7:55 and should be over by 10 minutes after 8. With no action to follow. The time is 20:10 and we are adjourned for the evening.